to everyone here. Thank you to everyone here, everyone who is coming from, it looks like already all parts of the earth. This is one of the fun things about our CPD group for our webinars, is to see where people are attending from. And it is always such an international group. And we're so happy we welcome all of you to this exciting presentation today. We're so happy to have Dr. Anastasia Khawaja. She is coming to us from Ramallah, Palestine. And as you know, her topic is Teaching Within and Beyond the Wall, Experiences of an Expat Educator in Palestine. And she is going to talk to us a little bit today about a broad variety of ideas and talking about living and working abroad, which affects many of our members, our CPD members. And so we are just thrilled to have Anastasia here with us today. And she's going to talk for a little bit, and then we will save some time at the end for questions if you have questions, or even throughout if maybe you raise your hand and it's a good stopping point, we might have time for a few questions in between. So with that, I will turn it over to, oh, and one thing also I forgot to thank and point out that we have in our audience Dr. Liz England, who is the founder of our CPD group. And then we have Gulchera, who is part of our CPD leadership team, and she is running tech for us from Almaty today. So thanks to everyone, and a big thanks to Anastasia for being here with us. We look forward to your presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
شكرا ليندا. مرحبا، يعطيكم العافية. أهلا وسهلا من Palestine. This is what we generally say here to greet everyone in Palestine. Etikafia literally just means God help you, good health. It doesn't, there are so many things here that do not have a really good English translation. You just say them and you feel them and you embrace them. So I heartily welcome you as I am in Palestine. Can I be a host so I can share my screen, please?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Thank you.
I'm so bad here. Please
No.
stand. It's my fault. Thank you
Not at
for the invitation.
I'm very happy to see people coming in from Iraq, from Saudi, from India, from Japan, from France. My gosh, I love our profession so much because you just don't know who in the world you are going to meet. Okay, let's see. We're gonna go.
Thank you, your co-host now. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I think you'll just see a whole bunch of my tabs. That's totally okay.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, you see all my tabs. Wonderful. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. And here we go. Whoops. Oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Already there's a malfunction. That's okay. All right, there we go. I'm gonna go here. Oh.
Here it comes.
Oh, already there's a malfunction. Okay, that's no problem. All right, I'm gonna bring my slides back up.
Yep. We do this all the time. Please don't worry, anyone. We're just, learning tech as we go. And every time we do one of these, we have something like what we're doing right now, which is a brief, we should put up a commercial break about some wonderful coffee that we want to sell you, but we don't have anything.
Did we lose Anastasia? Or is she still there?
Anastasia is still here, but she maybe went back out and will come back in because that's sometimes what happens with these crazy. She'll be back.
Yeah. Hang tight, everybody.
Should have put on some music, we are family. She's speaking to us, Linda, she said from Ramallah.
Yes, from Ramallah.
Here she is. Thank you all for waiting.
Yes. Wouldn't be living in Palestine without some technical errors on the internet. My apologies wholeheartedly, everybody. Okay, we're gonna do this again. We're gonna try. Here we go. Oh my goodness. All right.
I wonder if I have to make you co-host again. Are you co-host?
I will find out in a couple of seconds. Let me see. All right, I promise we'll get this show on the road. Oh, yeah, I need to be host again. Okay, we'll figure this out.
Thank you for your patience. Okay, here we go.
So sorry. Okay, here we are.
We keep saying that. And sure enough, we're going to be there in just a matter of seconds.
Oh my goodness. All right, here we go. We're here. All right, can we all see my screen?
We can't.
Oh, you make it. All right. Yes. Okay, so here we go.
Oh, beautiful.
All right, so where in the world are we? We have already established that. Let's go ahead and move on. All right, so a general outline. First, I'll talk a little bit about where Palestine is. I will talk about it in the geographical context. I'll talk about it in a little bit of the socio-political context. But if you're here to talk about the occupation, the conflict, et cetera, this is not the webinar for you. We'll be talking about this mainly through educational, through experiences. There's a lot to cover in Palestine. So if you have any extra questions that maybe we're not covering, you can reach me at the end. We'll also talk a little bit about the dynamics of living in the region and a little bit of activity and reflection time because I like interaction with anybody who I speak with. All right, so I want to start out just to kind of gauge what everyone's interest is. Has anyone heard of Mentimeter? Okay, I see a couple of hands, awesome. If you haven't, it's okay, it's super easy to use. I want you all to go to menti.com and I want you to go to the code 43943993, and I need to reactivate that in just a second. Let me see where we are. Yes. All right, I need to reactivate. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second. There we go.
4399.
3993. Hold on, why is it not? There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna go to the Mentimeter. Do you see my screen or no?
No.
Okay, that's perfect. That's exactly where I want to be then. Okay, I'm going to share my screen right now. All right, so we're gonna go to the presentation here. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to okay, so what is a question you have about living in Palestine and or abroad? All right, so here we are. I'm just gonna go ahead and present this. And I love Mentimeter just as a teaching tool. You can see at the bottom how many people are participating. So if you have, let's say, for example, 35 or 40 students, you can easily see how many students are participating through the little counter. And right now it's free, which is always helpful. All right, so I have one. What are some of the challenges you face as a woman? Okay, that's a great question. I will be talking a little bit about that as I move on. Are there any other questions? I'll wait for maybe 1 more minute, 30 more seconds. I'm in the chat as well. Oh, the code. Okay, great. Okay. Any other questions? I'll wait 1 more minute. Language learning journey. Okay. Yeah, I could talk a little bit about that. Language is, of course, intertwined with identity and everything else. So we'll be talking about that kind of infused together. Are there any other questions? بكم السؤال. جاهزين? Are we ready? All right, and of course, I'm not monitoring Facebook, so if there's any questions there, if anyone is monitoring Facebook, let me know, and then I can make note of those questions as well. Okay. Thank you for your participation in this. Great. All right, we're gonna head back to, hopefully seamlessly, okay, good, to the presentation. All right. All right, great. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about where Palestine is. So Palestine is in the Middle East. It is situated near, it actually borders Jordan, it's near Iraq, Kuwait, Syria, and it also shares a border with Israel. The placement, even the name Palestine, is very complicated, but I'm going to talk a little bit about why that is with this. This is a map that I use pretty often. In fact, one of my colleagues and I wrote a chapter in a volume that talked about peace education in the classroom, and we used this graphic by permission from the company, and it really shows the complex layers of Palestine and Israel. So a lot of people, if you don't understand the region, would say, oh, okay, so Palestine and Israel, there's like a fight, there's a conflict. I'm like, simplifying this. So that means that Israel's on one side and Palestine's on the other side, right? Well, no, nothing could actually be further from the truth. And this map actually helps to illustrate as to why. So the white is actually the fence or separation wall or barrier. Depending on what language you use, depends on how this translates. We call it in English pretty simply the separation wall. And it's this base kind of concrete that kind of separates certain areas of the land, although there's not really official borders because nobody has actually officially and legally agreed on these borders. That's a bit of a side story. So what happens is that you see where there's a white border, and that should separate. That should be, okay, Israel, so Palestine is here. But if you look on the side where you have the West Bank, you see the blue and you see there is dark blue. And you see little kind of triangles. And so this basically means that there are things called settlements or mustatna ba'arabi, and that is where not just like Israelis, but maybe people who are coming over and immigrating from various parts of the world are coming over and they are settling. Depending on how you feel, some people feel this is legal, this is illegal. Actually, these settlements are deemed illegal by international law. But there are several of them over in the West Bank. Even the village where my husband's family is, we see them all the time. Actually, if I go up on the roof of my in-laws' home, literally there's a settlement like less than like 100 feet away from me, like from the roof, like in very close quarters, mainly within the villages. Now, on the other side, there's actually a lot of Palestinians who actually live over in Israel as well. They may not have the same rights as somebody who is just plain Israeli have, but they do live over there. They are able to go back and forth, etc. So just the whole land is very complicated. Every time you see some of the blue, so anytime you see the green, there's actually military run, there's actually civilian Israeli run, and there are a lot of different checkpoints. And so sometimes there's like permanent checkpoints where soldiers are going to be. And sometimes there's what you call floating checkpoints where they can just makeshift and just set it up and they can just check cars and things wherever they decide to check cars. Most of the time, this is done by one person checking the car and one person and one soldier pointing a gun at your car. It's a kind of very common practice when you kind of get through checkpoints. My children have actually started to learn to get used to that. A little more on that later. So yes, living here. So just the basic geographical area, it's very complex. It's not just one over here and one over here. It's literally everybody kind of coming together, living under, I wouldn't say peace, kind of just making things work without making things work, if that makes any sense. But about question, sorry. All right, but a little bit about me. All right, so I am actually Irish American. My husband is Palestinian, technically Palestinian American. He got his citizenship in 2015, and our children are Palestinian Americans. I have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old, and we moved to Palestine in July. And if you see that in the right-hand side, that's actually my brand new sister-in-law and my brother-in-law. We were living in Tampa together, Tampa, Florida, USA for a while. The middle, that's my husband and I. We took a trip to Milan because living in the Middle East has its perks, considering that Europe is pretty close, just getting a quick flight over. And so there is us. That's my family. There's a big trampoline park in Ramallah, so we can cut loose and get in big trampolines. There's an ice skating rink. Ramallah, the city, has a lot of things. The villages do not. But if you go into the cities, there's actually a lot more things that you can do and things like that. All right, I've been able to stay really active through being able to be in different types of webinars. I've been able to travel to Kuwait to be able to do different types. There we go. Quit my WhatsApp. There we go. Different types of in-person conferences. I've been able to travel to Bethlehem. One of my dear friends is a Fulbrighter over there, Dr. Anita Bright. So we're able to get in contact a lot. I'm able to teach. I've got some amazing students. And, you know, the way we travel, I'll get to this picture in just a second, but this is Anita and I when we are traveling back from Jordan to cross back over the bridge back into Israel and to Palestine. We're getting our game faces on, ready to go through the process. But I've been able to stay very active in the field and very active since I have been abroad. I want to talk a little bit about the dynamics of being here. And I actually did this in a TESOL 2023 presentation. And I stole a slide from that presentation because I divided these dynamics in 3 different ways, and they all intertwine in the social, the cultural, and the educational. So the first one is movement. With movement, as I showed in the map, movement can be very complex within the West Bank. But also, I am the spouse of a Palestinian. Even though my husband is Palestinian American, as soon as you cross back over into the West Bank, he's Palestinian. And, oh, you know, I'm not really American. I'm the wife of a Palestinian. So as soon as I started getting my visa renewal process from Ramallah, instead of going back and forth and getting renewed in Jordan, my access became restricted. I get a roughly 6-month visa and I get restricted. I'm not allowed into Israel. I'm not allowed into Jerusalem. I have to stay within the West Bank. And if I want to travel, I have to go through Amman. I have to go through Jordan. Hopefully that's going to change with the visa waiver program that Israel so desperately wants to be part of. But for now, I am restricted. Even though I have a US passport, it doesn't matter. We kind of have to play by those rules. Education-wise, it's kind of complicated. I'm, of course, US educated. That obviously gives me a lot of privilege, as well as any Palestinian who is US educated, who has the higher English skills. My children also go to a private school. So a lot of people have said, well, what is the education like? And this ends. The government education is complicated, especially because for about 2.5 months, from about February on through until after Eid here, the government schools essentially were on strike because the government they were not paying the teachers. And the teachers gave warning after warning after warning, and eventually they just stayed home and said, we're not going to go to school until you give us money. And the government was like, we don't have the money. And they're like, yeah, you do. You're just not giving us the money. 2.5 months of negotiation, 2.5 months of these children staying home from school. And my children are private school educated, so they just kept going and they just kept going. And my nieces and nephews who go to school in Naline, in the village, maybe they would have a class one day, maybe they wouldn't. So that made things, of course, very complicated. And now, of course, the strike is over. But now my sister-in-laws are just, lamenting to me that the children have like 6 and 7 tests a day because they have to catch up, they have to catch up, they have to catch up, because they have to finish school, then they have to do the summer. And, and essentially that's just studying, that's not learning. So the break in education has been a huge issue, because education is a foundation. Anybody, we are all language educators here. We know education is the foundation for anything. So anytime the education is interrupted, then that is something that, we take, very seriously. And that is something that is definitely worth reflection. All right, so freedom. There is solidarity at a cost, and there is division within that solidarity. There is a quote unquote side, but there are sides within sides. It is, so there's not like, for example, like one side, one political party. It's very, very divided here. So for example, in the West Bank, we will go on strike when like certain villages or cities are attacked within the West Bank. But of course, Gaza made the news about maybe a week ago or so. We saw what happened between Gaza and the IDF and the back and forth exchange. The West Bank never went on strike, kept business as usual. My children kept going to school, everything. So it's incredibly disjointed here. It's hard, it's still very hard to navigate as an American, especially as an American married to a Palestinian, and as somebody who is active on all sides, multiple fronts. We kind of learn who we officially cannot talk to and who we officially can talk to. And so you just kind of have to kind of move into it. The best way I can, I guess I can characterize life here is I can move through the unofficial shadows. And everything is very unofficial due to just my basic spousal residency status, due to Palestine be Palestine, and depending on how the United States looks at Palestine, everything is very like kind of unofficial. And I guess it's the best way I can put it. Okay. There are a lot of strikes. As I said before, there can be attacks in Nablus, there could be attacks in Jenin, and we'll close down. There could be attacks nearby Ramallah, where I live. Now, I live in Area A, so it's not necessarily a place that is under a lot of tension and turmoil, but there are certainly skirmishes and things that happen kind of close by. They could happen at any time. And I posted this because a lot of the communication will come from channels like Instagram. They'll come from things. You won't just get a big announcement like over like a loudspeaker or a text message or a newspaper clipping. It'll be like, hey, okay, we're going to go on strike. And then, like the city will find out. And then universities will catch on. And then schools will catch on. It's not just done like this big announcement. It's like this kind of trickle effect. For example, the last strike that we had due to the position of my children's school, which is technically near Area C, which is Israeli controlled, and Area A, which is Palestinian controlled. My children's school decided not to close, but then everything else had to close because it was Area A, which is under the Palestinian Authority control. So it's very, again, there's not just, one way to shut down. It's very disjointed. It's very, you just kind of have to go with the flow in that way. Say, okay, my kids are going to go to school. I'm being sent home. Got it. Okay, we're just going to go with it. And okay, this store is open. This store may not be open. And you just go. You just keep going with it. And you just, all of that. Okay. Next. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this culture here. And so Mahmoud Darwish was a very famous poet. He actually died in 2008 in Texas trying to go through a heart transplant, but he lived Palestinian. He lived his life Palestinian. He lived most of his life over here. In fact, there is a fabulous museum that was dedicated to him. And when I went there, I realized that almost everything, of course, was in Arabic. It used to be bilingual, English and Arabic. And they said we had to take off the English because the English just did not do the Arabic justice. But a very kind of a rough translation of the Arabic here from Mahmoud Darwish is, if the olives remember the one who planted them, the oil would turn into tears. So there's a lot, I think this really represents a lot of what happens in the Palestinian culture. Olives are so important, and they represent the land, and they represent history, and they represent struggle. And it was amazing to be here during the olive time and the olive celebration. And but then of course we heard stories of settlers trying to come in and burn olive trees and burn thousands of years of history. But then you also heard about Israeli activists trying to come in, fight against the settlers, and try to replant and try to help. Actually, there was one Israeli, an activist who was put in the hospital by settlers. Just beat her up. An older woman beat her up and put her in the hospital because she was trying to help the Palestinians during olive season. So it can be a very contentious time, but it can also be a time to come together. There's a lot of groups that try to come together, but they can only get so far just due to so many different complexities that we have to dig through and we have to get through. But due to, I guess, transport, due to just the kind of division of cities and things, it's very hard to be mobile. And that way it's very hard to connect. And so sometimes it can be a challenge. Doesn't mean that we don't try, though. I know that there is a big TESOL conference it's going to be in Nablus actually on Sunday, where they're going to try to bring educators and people from all over the West Bank to try to come together. So this image was actually taken in 2016. I'm a visual learner. And of course, this is a woman, is 2016, and she's holding on to the olive tree. There's resources are very, very important here. And so things like olives, things like land, water, these are like the bread and butter, the life of Palestinians. And so they are at while they are life, they are at the same time targets to people who would rather not see Palestinian land to thrive. This picture was taken at Eye on Palestine in 2016. It's still one of my the most poignant ones, and one that it just gives so much. There's just so much in just was one picture. Okay, I want to talk a little bit, because I said I was going to talk a little bit about theory. I want to talk a little bit about, because I just gave this webinar in intercultural communication, and I want to talk about the developmental model of intercultural sensitivity. It's by Kushner, McCullen, Safford, Bennett, and there's these 6 stages. Now, the one thing I always caution when I talk about stages is that these are not linear stages. This is not, hey, you made it. Hey, you're going to go to the next stage. These are stages you will fluctuate back and forth, back and forth. And when you live abroad, this is when you get to the whole collectively when you live abroad. I know my talk is mainly on Palestine, but we have a lot of people living abroad, or they want to live abroad. So this part is literally for everybody to relate to. So there's these 6 kind of stages. And even within these 6 stages, there are stages within stages as well. But generally we have denial. Now, of course, when these stages were first introduced, they were introduced very linearly. I do not teach it linearly. I teach it as very fluctuating, very fluid. And, we are not linear thinkers. We are not hierarchical thinkers, but yet all of our models seem to be in the step-by-step fashion. All right, so let's look at the first one. First one is denial. Basic one, different cultures are not considered, only interested in their culture. Then we move to defense, where you have a tendency of being critical of the other cultures. So you say, and usually that's when you feel your culture is kind of under attack, right? And you get very defensive, like, oh, well, I do it this way. Well, at least I don't do it this way, And so, and by the way, I'm just going to say, full disclosure, I've had all of these feelings, and I'm going to talk about the feelings that I've had on the next slide. So these are things I even go through, and I've been here for a while. Minimization, you start finding commonalities between the culture and the other cultures. Acceptance is more like you start to try to recognize and you appreciate the cultural differences, but you still kind of see them as differences. Adaptation is when you start actually incorporating different worldviews together, and you start kind of trying to intertwine and say, oh my gosh, I'm really starting to think in that way. Okay, I'm really starting to kind of think in this way. And I'm trying to put things together. And then integration is literally kind of becoming a bridge to the different cultures, and helping maybe your culture understanding another culture, because you've become a bit more fluid in this other culture that may have been a bit foreign to you at first. So again, these are stages that are not linear. They are not step by step, but these are definitely things that we go through. I like this so much better than culture shock. If you're familiar with the culture shock model of you love everything, then you hate everything, then you accept everything, and then the end, everyone lives happily ever after. This one complicates it a little bit more. All right, so now I'm going to move on to the point. All right, so here are some stages, and I actually have some stories that attach to these stages. So we got denial. Like if something happens, I get really frustrated and I just don't agree and I don't understand. Whatever, I'm an American. I was like, "Halos ana Amerikia." Oh, I'm American, whatever. Sometimes you get away with that because, you know, when you're American, you kind of get away with that at times, depending on what the situation is. Defense. The one thing that I at times still struggle with is the kind of segregated genders, especially in the villages. In Ramallah, in the city, not so much. But in the villages, it's still very much, still very much a thing. And so say, well, these are not separated between genders in the States, you know, and I mean, the States, they have their own issues, definitely. And then minimization is we both value identity, even if that looks different. And I've seen that as I've tried to focus and figure out my own identity. And my children have tried to figure out their identity. And, you know, even my husband, who, you know, grew up in Palestine, is trying to also figure out his identity because he's been away from Palestine for over a decade at this point. So we're all trying to figure out identity. And, you know, everyone has very, especially in Palestine, where on a daily, weekly, sometimes hourly basis, people feel their identity and their very well-being coming under attack. They're going to hang on to that identity, which is honestly why I think villages are a little, not, this is more the Eurocentric lens, but and I've heard this like from like my nieces and nephews, when I like my younger nieces, maybe like in their 20s or so, and I say, how come villages are so slow to adapt to change? Look at Ramallah, look at this. And they said, well, we're changing, but you know, they live so close to these settlements. And so keeping their Palestinian identity a lot of times also comes with keeping the old traditions, like the segregation and things like that, segregated celebrations and whatnot. Ramallah, where I live, isn't as, you're not really reminded of the settlements so much because you're not by the settlements. And I think that with the villages, there's much more of a, there's much more pressure to retain what it looks like to be Palestinian, even if that is constantly changing with the different dynamics and ages and things like that. Acceptance. So funny, you know, I appreciate the need not to always be on time. You know, I'm not, I don't like to always be like on time, like on the dot. And in Palestine, it's like, it's just so, it's addy, it's normal. It's like you're 20 minutes late. Oh, you know, whatever. Like, it's just, it's not a big deal. And it's just so funny, just the concept of time. Now, my mother-in-law, though, she is a devout Muslim, mashallah. She prays and she fasts twice a week. And, you know, I think though, because she is so on time, because literally she lives by the different prayer times. So she'll say, you know, it's like, you know, it's like, you know, after this prayer, before this prayer, after this prayer, she's on time. I think mainly because, you know, of the different prayer times that she keeps all the time. And I was trying to figure out why she's always on time, she's always on time. That's probably why. A lot of other people, there's so much, they're just not on time. My students, you know, not on time. You know, meetings or something. Hey, we have a meeting starting at 12. 12:15, 12:20. You know, it's not a big deal. Wait, I got a class right now. Oh, you could be 5 minutes late. It's okay. Wait, are you sure? Yeah, your students won't be on time anyway. It's just like, okay. So acceptance, right? Adaptation and integration, I think that those go together hand in hand with me in a lot of ways. You know, I'm speaking more Arabic these days, but even if I'm like speaking in English or broken Arabic here and there, I'm going to incorporate, inshallah, alhamdulillah, mashallah, like, you know, all these different types of things, because Arabic has this way of expression. And, you know, you have to learn certain Arabic expressions, because when you say something, usually there's a response. Assalamu alaikum, walaikum assalam, yatika afia, ala afik if you're a man, ala afiki if you're a woman. Like there's this constant, you know, it's like sahtain, it's like two health. It's like akelbak if you're a male, akelbik if you're a female. You know, there's this, it's like this jazz call and response back and forth. And so even if you're speaking English, these certain phrases and these certain kinds of greetings and back and forth, you have to be able to incorporate. Or, I mean, you don't have to, but it's nice to be able to incorporate. Because when you're speaking in Arabic, there's this flow in this certain way that English just cannot. Like if you say peace be upon you, that's like peace be upon me, assalamu alaikum. Like that's like, you know, it's the flow of like peace. It's, I don't know, maybe it's just being here in the Holy Land, but certain phrases, certain words, just English does not do it justice. So, yeah, integration is an ongoing process. You question like what it means to be American, what it means to be a Palestinian. You know, it's this constant back and forth. And again, like there are days I can be like an adaptation, and then there are days I can be like, whatever, I'm just not going to do it. You know, so it's this constant, you know, back and forth, moving through different ways and different places. Linda, did you have something? I'm sorry, did you? I wasn't sure. No, okay.
I'm good. I'm really enjoying thinking.
Okay, all right.
I was curious though about your job. Do you work?
Yes, I do work. I do. I am able to maintain my online composition for University of South Florida. And here I'm more of like, I guess you can call me like officially more of like a university consultant. I'm able to consult and, you know, kind of unofficially guide and, you know, kind of do and kind of make an impact on students here. My children, of course, also go to school as well. Yeah, and I'm able to do a lot of different types of things online, and also just kind of like find different things. Like I guess people find out you have like an American professor living in certain places, and things just kind of find you here in the West Bank. But I did want to have some time for Q&A, but I wanted to close this one section though. And I had the video all queued up, and then I accidentally hit the X button. So just give me 1 minute to bring up a video. And it actually shows my son, my oldest son, Sayed, working through his identity as a Palestinian American. Just give me 1 second to bring it up, maybe 1 minute to bring it up. And I will reshare my screen in just a second. While I am doing that, does anyone have any questions I can entertain?
Wonderful.
While I'm bringing this up, does anyone have any questions?
This is called wait time.
I swear, Liz, I had everything queued up, and then the snafu, I just hit X, closed it all out. Oh my goodness, let me see. There it is. Okay.
I noticed that in our community.
Sorry, 1 second. Now I will share my screen. All right. So my 13-year-old has actually become quite the video expert. He knows how to post videos. He has his own YouTube channel. You know, so he posted this, and on the day of Nakba, which is actually the day that in 1948 that Palestinians were removed and displaced off of their land. There was of course a lot of trauma, a lot of protesting, but this was a video that I shared, and I want to share it with you now. Can you all see my screen? Can you see my cute 13-year-old pointing to flags? Yes? Okay, here we go. All right, so here we go.
When my dad is from KMPR, which means I'm Dominican. But so long as you sing, Dominican, Cuban. My dad is from Chile and PR, which means I'm Chile, Dominican. But I always say I'm from Queens. So long.
All right, so that is my son. He went and he took, I think it's from I think that's from Encanto, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it's not. But he was like, hey, it's like, you know, my mom is from here and my dad is from here. That means I'm here. But I always say I'm from here. So he's like, now that we've lived here, he's like, he is embraced the fact, you know, he is, you know, Palestinian. He's American, but he is Palestinian. Part of the reason he has embraced that is because a lot of kids at school have actually called him not Palestinian. They're like, oh, you're not Palestinian, you're American, you know, you have an American mom and all this. And part of that is jealousy. There's a lot of layers to that. He's actually found that a lot of people are very jealous of the expat mom or the expat family. But he's trying to work through that, and he's trying to find expats like him. I actually went online to a Spouses for Palestinian group and said, all right, who has an 8-year-old and a 13-year-old, just like me, you know, get our kids together, let's figure it out. You know, so he's working through his identity. And my 8-year-old, you know, he's very flexible and, you know, he kind of goes with the flow. But my 13-year-old is the one who's at this precipice. He's at this point of his life where he's trying to figure out who he is and what he wants to do, and you know, what and who he represents. And so I just wanted to share that little video with you. All right. I want to, let's see, where am I going to go? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back here again. Good. Yeah. Okay. And then finally, where are we going? Yes, good. All right. And then I want to close with a quick story. Actually, it happened with my mother-in-law and I. If you follow me on social media, I'm full of stories, a lot of different stories. But there's one that I don't think I shared on social media because it was just a bit too long to say. What is it? Yes. So I've been married for 14 years. I've been in the culture for about 15 years. And I was still, Arabic can be such a complicated, nuanced language, and that even if you're saying something that is directly correct, culturally, it's not correct. And so I remember I guess it was during Ramadan, and go shut the door. And we all came in a little bit later, and my mother-in-law was asking in Arabic, like, why are you here, you know, later? Like, you didn't have school and the university was closed. Oh, it was Easter. That's right. It was Easter. So everything was closed. And so it's Ramadan, and we always come for the weekend. It was about 3 o'clock or so, and she looked at me and she was like, you were sleeping, weren't you? Because, you know, like, I like my sleep on the weekend. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And, you know, it's like, well, your son too. And I said, you know, and I said, oh, well, you know, Ibn Kaman, you know, and she looked at me kind of like, is it Ibni? And I'm like, yeah, you know, your son, you know, and not even thinking anything about it. So she kind of laughs it off, and she's cooking and doing whatever and all that. So I'm talking to one of my sister-in-laws, and I'm recounting the story to her in Arabic. And she was like, it's like, in typical Ibnik, it's like, you said Ibnik to our mother-in-law? I'm like, yeah, you know, it's her son. I'm like, it's your husband. It's your husband. It's not her son. This is just, I mean, yeah, but this is like not, like, this is just disrespectful. This is not okay. And I looked at her and I'm thinking like, oh, okay. And I said, like, I didn't know. No, Habibti, I know. She knows you did not know. Otherwise, you know, she would have been a little bit more upset about this. And so I asked my sister-in-law, and I was like, fix this for me. You know, as I explained, like, let's all talk about this together and say, and so, you know, she's going up and we're talking. And then I was like, Asif, you know, I'm so sorry. And then she kind of smiled. She was like, Diamond, Zulji. I was always your husband. I'm like, oh, Diamond, Zulji, inshallah, Mr. Ebning, just always my husband. So anytime I, you know, would refer to her son or my husband, it's my husband. It is her son, but it is my husband. I don't know exactly why in the culture, but that's just one of those examples where I got it like exactly the translation, but that cultural translation could not have been any more like wrong. And that also goes along with wholly like adaptation and acceptance. I could have passed it off and said, okay, I'm American, I'm sure she knows I didn't mean it. But it's more of this adaptation of like, okay, you know what? When I'm talking to an older person, especially my mother-in-law, it's my husband, it's not her son, because I am not of the same kind of status hierarchy, etc. So that was one of those things. All right, and then finally, Nakba 75 happened in Palestine, actually all over the world. There's been like different remembrance and different things at the same time on the cusp of Israeli Independence Day. It's very, and this is actually in Ramallah, I think this was a couple of years ago in Ramallah. This is a key. This is actually a key from one of the old houses where Palestinians were displaced in 1947, 1948. And a lot of people have these keys in the West Bank. They have in the United States. And this is not necessarily her key. It was probably the key of her mother or her grandmother or her grandfather. And they hang on to these keys because they want to be able to return to their land someday. And you feel it. You feel a lot when you live here. And you feel there's a lot of groups, no matter where you are in the region, that are trying to work together. They're trying to do good. But there's a lot of legal barriers that don't always enable us to be able to do that. So we try to move through carefully and just try to make impacts where we can, depending on what different groups that we are in, because everyone has similar sentiments, but how to deal with it and how to solve and how to move forward, that is where there's a lot of disagreement. No matter, even within the Palestinian groups, there's a lot of disagreement as to how to move forward, except that we have to in some way. So that is that. I did want to go back to Mentimeter. Do we have a few minutes to go back to Mentimeter? Okay, let's do that. Let me see if I can seamlessly do this. Oh, I can, yes. Okay. So let's all go back to Mentimeter. And I want to, okay, here's questions here. All right, how about schooling in Palestine? Is it always okay, I think I answered a lot of these already. What have you learned from colleagues there? I've definitely learned more about going with the flow. Students, people will always have emergencies, right? Students were stuck in traffic. Students, may have been imprisoned and may have missed a couple of assignments or even a final or exam or something. A village might be closed down. They may be blockaded. You don't know, and you just have to, constantly be on guard. Okay, is everybody okay? Okay, what happened here? Oh, this person was injured at a checkpoint. Right. Okay, got it. All right. So you just have to kind of keep going and going. But you also need to learn, to give yourself space. For me, meditation, yoga, Pilates, going to a coffee shop and getting a nice coffee. I'm a caffeine addict. Luckily, most people in Palestine are, which is good. Either caffeine or shisha or both. They're very addicted to their shisha and also their coffee and cigarettes, although I'm not a cigarette smoker. All right. So you just have to kind of take it. Nothing is ever simple. Nothing is ever straightforward. And things are constantly changing. You just have to be ready for the change or on the go. If something was decided upon and agreed upon, that could change in a couple of weeks, depending on whatever is happening. And you just kind of have to say, okay, got it. Let's just, move forward. All right. So I wanted to ask in general, what is your takeaway, or if you have any further questions? Give me some feedback. You can literally write whatever you want to in this box. What helped you, any insights you might have if you are planning on coming abroad, or if you currently are abroad in a different culture, different area. I'll give a few minutes. Is there something you really miss about life in the US? I was thinking about this actually, and I was really trying to, really think of, I mean, and honestly, aside from, Liz might know where this is going, but like, aside from Dunkin' Coffee, and drive-throughs, I miss drive-throughs. Although I am 10 pounds lighter than I was in the States because I'm not going, I kid you not, I'm not going through all the drive-throughs. There's not a lot of convenience food here. So I literally have to cook a lot more. I can't just be like, I'm so tired, I'm just gonna go to the drive-through and just get whatever we're gonna get. Like we literally have to plan our meals so much better here. And so that's that. And I was even thinking, like I was reflecting with my 13-year-old, I was asking, I'm like, when would you ever want to go back to the States? Do you miss the States or anything? And he's like, it's like, I don't want to die in school. And I was like so taken aback by his response, like, I don't want to die in school, because he knows like school shootings, the gun problem. I mean, even though Palestine has, occupation as issues, my kid is more afraid of dying in the States than dying here. That might tell legislators something, or maybe not, I don't know. But I mean, that broke my heart. And, people in Palestine pay attention too. They're like, yeah, you got some major problems. I'm like, ooh, okay, you're telling me, coming from you. So it's like, we all, yeah, it's a lot to sift through. I was having just a random conversation with somebody in a coffee shop about it, who had been to the States, and she got it. She's like, yeah, I get it. That makes sense. So, I mean, also, Shali, there's going to be better gun legislation and things taking place in the States. But I mean, it's, how is it in the States right now? I haven't been there in a while. Everything okay there? Silence. Well,
No,
I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear what the people from Florida say.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, he announced on Twitter last night. That's right.
Oh gosh.
I live in Virginia, which is not Florida, but we've had our problems. But some of Anastasia's personal commentary reminds me so much of my experience with friends here who say, you're going to such a dangerous country. I go to some country and they say that, and I say, no, I live in the most dangerous country on earth.
Yeah.
But others don't feel it, and they, push back on me and say, oh, it's safe here in Winchester where we live. Everything's safe. And I'm okay. But I don't think we are aware in other parts of the world, certainly not in the US, of how dangerous really our lives are here. And we read the news and we, kind of believe everything we hear. It's so great to hear from a person like Anastasia, who is actually witnessing life day to day in a place that we don't go to. So thank you, Anastasia.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's true. It's heartbreaking to say about the US, but there it is. It's a lot. Multicultural sensitivity model. Oh, good. I'm very glad that you got some feedback from that. That's great. I had a video, but I didn't share it. I'll put it on my Facebook later, but we were driving to Aline a few weeks ago, and we literally saw camels just grazing, outside. And I'm like, pull the car over. And my husband does. I'm like, can I go out and pet it? He's like, no, you can't go pet the camel. I'm like, why can't I pet the camel? I still say dumb things like that, it's like, or like there was one time they had closed. I thought that it was the village that closed for safety. Like they were closing as they were expecting something or whatever. And so we were trying to drive to the other part of the village and it was closed. I'm like, oh, we'll just get out and walk. He's like, no. I was like, just some such. And it's like the Israeli soldiers closed it. Like, we're not just going to get out and walk and we're going to turn around. We're going to go home. No, we're not going to go walk and we're not going to, it's like, it's this constant, like, it's like, think about what you're saying. I'm like, I didn't think I wasn't thinking in that frame, but sometimes you have to. All right, any other questions? Any thoughts? Well, thank you for the 2 people who did my Mentimeter. That's good, thank you. Anyone on Facebook? Anybody in the comments on Facebook? Are there any questions there? I want to make sure I don't forget them. Go here for a second. Oh. All right, let me, oh, there we go. And go here. All right, I'm gonna go back to, yeah, so to close, I got another Mahmoud Darwish quote for you.
There's a
And
question for you, Anastasia. We're
Okay.
coming to the end. I think, Linda, please excuse me. Is adaptation easy? Riham said, or no, is that Riham?
adaptation, is adaptation easy? No, but it's very worth it though. Adaptation, integration is never easy because you're literally having to question everything that you know, and you have to figure out how that's going to work for you. And you have to kind of, constantly recalibrate and rethink and reframe, deconstruct, reconstruct. It's worth it. But no, it's not easy, I wouldn't say. Especially because it changes, once you think you have something figured out, and then maybe you don't, maybe it's not as, as you said, because something else happened to make you rethink something. And that happens to me on a regular basis. Yeah, so yeah. So finally, I have a quote from Mahmoud Darwish, and he basically said, it's like my freedom is to be who they do not want me to be. And they can literally be anybody who is standing in their way. And here in Palestine, it could mean a variety of groups, not just the groups who we may expect, but other groups as well. So هرتي أن أكون كما لا يردون لي أن أكون. So I wanted to close with that as a very big sentiment here. There's a lot of pushback, and I think that being able to educate university students, both undergraduate and graduates, it's literally sometimes in their way. It's their way of pushing back, being those doctors and lawyers and business people and communications majors, and really making something of themselves, either still being in Palestine or going off into the diaspora. But it's just an honor to people to be part of that, and to watch these students grow, and to watch anyone here grow. So I will close with that. And with that, I'll take any more questions. I know we're coming to the end. My Instagram is here. My LinkedIn is there. So please keep in contact with me, especially if you want to hear more stories. I always have stories on social media that I share.
All right. So first of all, thank you to our audience. Thank you to all of you who took the time to come and be with us today and share your ideas and listen to Anastasia's wonderful presentation. We are so happy to have had this really great insight into Palestine and what it is like there, and this these ideas of acculturation and assimilation can, I think, definitely be carried into other contexts, other cultures, right? Maybe some of it very specific to Palestine because it's an area in conflict. However, there are a lot of takeaways from this that no matter where you are, to think about and maybe help you to assimilate and think about how you're looking at this new culture when you move abroad. So thank you so much, Anastasia, for taking your time and really thoughtfully considering all of the aspects and everything to share with us today. It was a great insight into your not only teaching and living abroad, but also personally and your family. And so we really appreciate this slice of life from you.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm glad that this all worked out. I know we've been trying to plan to get this done for months. And so thank you. And thank you to Career Path Development for all you do to connect TESOLers and people from all over the world. It's so important what you do. So thank you.
Thank you so much once again, and thanks to everyone for joining in. And please stay in touch with us, stay in touch with Anastasia. I'm sure she would love to hear your comments and start dialogues. So,
and thank you, Linda and Anastasia too. Just to say, we had as usual, small but very engaged audience today. And we often get those who view the recordings, because of the time differences. You'll get some 40 or 50 people are going to be watching this as a recorded professional development experience. So this is just the way the world is. People, don't want to get up in the middle of the night, but they might look at the recording while they're having their morning coffee. Thank you, Anastasia. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Thanks especially to Gulia for helping with the tech today, and for Linda, as always. Linda, did you want to say anything about next events or?
Well, we are going to, in June, have a roundtable discussion about the very hot topic right now of AI, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, Grammarly, and all of those things. And so we're looking forward to that, and watch for my posting. It's going to be sometime early June. So please watch for the posting on Facebook and on our TESOL site. But we're looking forward to that. So join us if you can.
Delightful series. Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you all. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Great job, Gulia. Great job, Linda. Thank you so much. Anastasia, really interesting. I didn't ask you when we stopped.